the Conservative American Message, hosted by yours truly, Cam Lau. It's Saturday, November 12th, 2022, and today marks the very first episode of this podcast. It's been a long time that I've wanted to launch this podcast, and we finally made it, so thanks for joining us. Basically, what I plan to do is drop a new episode every Saturday to focus on the crazy political junk that happened during the previous week. This week has been filled with political junk. Now, those of you who have any sense of what's happening in the world know that Tuesday was election day, and those of you who give a crap about what happens in this country may even have actually gone out to vote. Actually, they were reporting record numbers of young voter turnout, which is mostly attributed to the issue of violent murder of innocent babies. I mean abortion. Yeah, abortion. I'm not sure what it is, but something killed the red wave that we were expecting. Apparently there are these people called Democrats, and they actually support the stupidity that these politicians partake in. Don't get me wrong, the Republicans have their issues, and we'll get to that. But first, let's take a look at where Republicans saw some success on Tuesday. So Ron DeSantis has successfully transformed Florida from a purple state into a solid red one. He even won Miami-Dade County, which hasn't gone red in like 20 years. So then you had 4 Republicans flipping their districts in New York. And in my home state of Iowa, we saw a sea of red, with Kim Reynolds getting a second term, Chuck Grassley's still alive, so I guess he's still a senator, and all 4 congressional districts in Iowa joined the red team. It actually looks like Republicans are going to take back the House. Finally, Nancy Pelosi won't be third in line for the presidency. Not that number 1 and 2 are any better. And then in Georgia, Brian Kemp beat Stacey Abrams in the gubernatorial race there, but neither Herschel Walker nor Raphael Warnock received more than 50% of the vote, and in Georgia that means they have to do a special runoff election, which is going to be held after Thanksgiving. But most of all, Arizona is back on the national stage as they prove that they still don't know how to run an election. Republican gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake was in a tight race with Katie Hobbs, and suddenly there's problems. In Maricopa County, printers failed to read ballots, resulting in some 17,000 people at 70 different polling places being unable to vote. Some polling places were running out of ballots. Others asked voters to place their ballots in a secure box to be counted later. You would think after all of the controversy over sketchy election practices during 2020 election that everybody would try to be as transparent and accurate as possible. But with all the crazy stories being reported out of Arizona, it's hard to have a blind faith in our elections. Overall, the midterms were pretty disappointing, to say the least. After all that we've endured under these liberal policies the last 2 years, you would think that a lot of Americans would rethink their politics. There's one man who does not rethink his politics or do much thinking at all. He's sleepy, he's incoherent, and he just wants to go back to the basement. He's your president, Joe Biden.
Lost fewer seats in the House of Representatives than any Democratic president's first midterm election in the last 40 years. And we had the best midterm for governors since 1986. And another thing that we know is that voters spoke clearly about their concerns about raising costs, the rising costs that they're in, and the need to get inflation down. There's still a lot of people hurting. They're very concerned. The overwhelming majority of American people support the elements of my economic agenda. From rebuilding America's roads and bridges to lowering prescription drug costs to historic investment in tackling the climate crisis to making sure that large corporations begin to pay their fair share in taxes. I'm confident these policies are working and that we're on the right path, and we need to stick with them. You know, as we look at tax cuts, we should be looking at tax cuts for working people and middle-class people, not the very wealthy. They're fine. And if you can go out and be a multimillionaire, that's great. Just pay your fair share. That's all. Just pay your fair share.
Come on, man. Just pay your fair share. That's all. And now that the election is over, Biden's student loan forgiveness plan has been blocked by U.S. District Judge Mark Pittman. The federal judge says that Biden cannot forgive the loans without an act of Congress. But Biden isn't upset by this. Now that the red wave became a red trickle, Biden and the Democrats have lots of confidence that they are doing the right thing. But we know the truth. These politicians do not take our interests into account, and they're seeking to destroy our nation. In other news, The D.C. Attorney General has filed suit against the Washington Commanders.
We're here today to talk about the Washington Commanders. For years, the team and its owner have caused very real and very serious harm and then lied about it to dodge accountability and to continue to rake in profits. So far, they seem to have gotten away with it, but that stops today. Today, we're filing a consumer protection lawsuit, a civil lawsuit against Dan Snyder, the Washington Commanders, the National Football League, and the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell for colluding to deceive residents of the District of Columbia about their investigation into a toxic workplace culture that impacted employees, especially women. All of that deception was done to protect their profits and their image.
President Biden will be heading to Indonesia on Monday to meet with the Chinese president to discuss his concerns over the Chinese threatening peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, as well as our long-standing concerns about human rights violations. Biden has gone back and forth so many times on Taiwan, it's a mystery what he's going to say to the Chinese president. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thanks for giving my podcast a listen, and don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date. Also, check out our Instagram and Facebook, The Conservative American Message.